And now, ladies and gentlemen of the old world, we're back in business once again with a community showdown featuring the High Elves, who shall be led by the mighty Poison Ducky. And today, my friends, he faces off against the dreaded Norscan hordes, who shall be led by Dusty and Wulfric, who appears to actually be on foot or horseback. It's actually going to be foot Wulfric, a bit of a rare sighting indeed, but Wulfric is a very powerful choice in this matchup. Oftentimes, though, he is on the Mammoth, and that's probably the most common choice against High Elves in general is using a Mammoth and just getting that threat overload. But really the best way to defeat them as Norsca, in my opinion, is using the Sea Fang. So firstly, use Sea Fang, and you'll notice that all the High Elf formations are very tightly packed. With the exception of Rangers and maybe one or two other units on the roster, they're very, very tightly packed. Yeah, you can see the Rangers here in the back, of course, are in a loose formation, but if you're able to use Sea Fangs, Penumbral Pendulums, Burning Heads, it is absolutely devastating against the High Elf roster. But man, look at that nasty, nasty bounce of power right now. That is definitely not a fun way to start the game, but it's not really a true reflection per se, but a little bit of a demoralizing thing. But nonetheless, Foot Wulfric still will have some teeth. He's got a silver shield, and he's not bad in combat. And High Elves do have some lightly armored monsters and Phoenixes, but yeah, we'll see how it works out for him. Now, as far as the High Elf army goes, Silver and Guard in the front line, always a great choice. Silver and Guard are quite solid. These bad boys do have 54 melee defense, 75 armor. So Berserkers and Marauders and anything that doesn't have a great weapon or AP, it's going to take some sweet time to get through these bad boys. And yeah, they have that charged defense against all as well, so it really nullifies many of the strengths of the Berserker, which is high DPS against light armor, and of course their charge bonus, which is really good also, right? But not so much against the Silver and Guard. In the secondary row, it's going to be Basic Spearmen, of course, defending against hounds and other horsemen and threats like that. Quad Archer, I think, yeah, it looks like it's going to be 4 basic archers. We have 2 groups of Rangers for crowd clearing, and 1 group of the Fireborn here in the back. But the most exciting part of this build is hands down Eltharion the Grim. So the Walmart Carl FRANZ up here in the sky, he does have Apotheosis, which is a good ability, and he does have both items, I think. Let's see here. He has got the Fang Sword of Eltharion, and he does also have the Helm of Ivres, which is really, really good with Phoenixes, but I have a feeling he's just bringing Eltharion for the beams here, just to have some fun. A Mage of Light is going to be bringing that net of Ammontok to lock down big monsters, usually used against Mammoths and those big threats bullying into your back line, but I'm curious to see how he'll use the nets in this game. For the Norscan army, pretty solid skirmishing core. He's got 4 Marauder Horsemen, I think, which are pretty good against like Phoenixes and Dragons, and it just gives you some steady DPS in that department. He's got some Hounds as well, 1 here and 1 sneaking ever so sneakily here on the far side of the map. And aside from that, it's going to be Berserkers and Marauders, Wulfric, and a Metal Caster with a final transmutation, so really going for a gooning effort. Sometimes with an army like this, with like a lot of Berserkers, you might actually see like Plague of Rust. But yeah, and he's got a Quad Skinwolf, the premier condom brand of the old world. These Skinwolves are going to be coming in and trying to wrap up these High Elves. But the battle's underway, and the Norscan hordes are advancing up the hill, but they're going to be taking some firepower on the way in. Those archers, of course, will hurt extremely bad against these Marauder Berserkers, who do have 69 models left, that's what she said, and now they're going to be charging into the Silver and Guard and not doing too much damage. So the first Sea Fang is going to be going down. Beautiful cast right there. Granted, it does also hit the Marauders, and it goes through the second group of Silver and Guard a little bit as well. But, you can see, even against something that does have armor as well as magic resist, those type of abilities can still do a ton of damage. So in the back here, some Hounds are lurking. It looks like Marauder Horsemen. Everyone's just kind of looking for a way into this back line, but currently the mighty Poison Duck is doing quite a good job defending his back line, using Fireborn to chase down Norscan Warhounds. So you got to make sure not to overchase, because while they're overchasing, this whole backline area is very, very open. What the Norscan player should do is get these horsemen, rush through here, get the other ones around the back, and he could be feasting on the souls of many a High Elf right now. Now, it looks like here, the High Elf lines do break, so if we take a look at the front line, they're pretty much holding across the board. As expected, Silver and Guard will outtrade Marauders, and will be able to hold back Berserkers for quite some time, especially with Archer support. But in this case, it looks like it was a pretty big overload here from the Norskins. They sent in 3 of these Skin Wolves and also Wulfric on foot and some Marauders, and should be able to overwhelm this position. So this is where it gets a little bit scary. The Fireborn is slightly out of position. You can see here Eltharion the Grim going to be using the Apotheosis to heal himself up and get things going. He does use a net here on the Norscan Warhounds to buy some time for these archers to retreat, but there are a lot of werewolves here, and these guys are looking quite pissed off. Now, this does look like a bad situation for the High Elves. However, the Fireborn are nearby, so if the High Elves are able to get the Fireborn into the Skinwolves here, who are also being pinned in by the flanking Rangers, Fireborn are pretty much a hard counter against Skinwolves. They're anti-large, they also do fire damage, they're heavily armored, which Skinwolves really do struggle with big armor, so this actually turned into a relatively decent situation for the High Elves, because balance of power is ebbing more and more into the favor here of Norsca, but I think this is going to be potentially a game-changing situation here. So the Fireborn still grinds it out. Skinwolves here, 16 of 18, these ones 18 of 18, and these ones 15 of 18. And Eltharion is here with the Fang Sword of Eltharion pop. This bad boy is rocking 525. Granted, he should probably be like closer to that anyways, but he's going to do battle here with Wulfric. But Wulfric, of course, though he's known as one of the greatest duelists the old world has seen, he doesn't have AP for some reason. So he's going to be pretty bad at dueling these monstrous lords. I mean, not terrible, but you know, he can't really trade terribly effectively with characters like Eltharion, who have like 100 armor. And yeah, look at the front line. Man, the Norscans just washed against the tide here of High Elf Spears. Another good Seafang. That was actually a really, really good one right there. That got 2 groups of Silver and Guard. Arguably, getting the archers might be a little bit better at this point, but it's hard to say. So here the Fireborn are able to force a bit of a mass exodus in a situation that looked very, very grim for the High Elves. A bit of an overextension there from Norsca. I mean, they probably should have hit those archers and then pulled back and spread their forces. Instead of having all 4 Skinwolves in one position, they really had the mobile advantage, and there were many aspects of the backline which I think the High Elves may have struggled to defend had they fanned out, but in that case, Poison Ducky did a very good job of getting his Fireborn, collapsing with his Rangers, and punishing that overextension. Here in the back, we have a couple Marauder Horsemen throwing into the spears. Again, they should be moving up and around here and up and around here and getting into those archer lines. But it's still a close scrap. I mean, the Bounce Power is pretty even here. We do have Eltharion the Grim, as well as some Rangers, trying to do battle here with Wulfric. Also some Skinwolves nearby might be able to potentially help. Fireborn have pushed out pretty far, and a little bit of a dangerous territory, but Fireborn are just such a hard counter against Skinwolves. Even if they overextend like this, it's not going to be the end of the world. I mean, Skinwolves have really suboptimal AP values, so against 100 armor plus physical resist, they are going to be pretty much wet werewolf noodles here. But even still, despite many of those engagements, the balance of power is pretty favored here for the forces of Norsca, it looks like. Yeah, I mean, they have the Marauder Horsemen, they have some infantry here, the Metalcaster, and the thing about Skinwolves is if you don't finish those bad boys, they're going to be regenerating and coming back. And the Fireborn, you know, weren't without losses themselves. They took a fair amount of damage, and the archers are also running a little bit sparse on ammunition, so that is probably part of the variable as to why the balance of power is still decent for the Norscans here. Eltharion the Grim, as far as his health goes, he's at about 1800. He does, of course, still have some healing, so he can cast that juicy Apotheosis on himself, and now the Norscans finally getting a little bit down and dirty here with the Marauders. Maybe opting to go in. I really think they were a little bit too cautious with those guys over the course of the game. He should have been getting those Marauder Horsemen and other units to just terrorize that back line, because this High Elf back line has been able to shoot and almost use all of its ammunition, but it's just archers. Final Transmutation going down as well. It hits some Spearmen. It looks like 2 Spearmen units, and it also hits the Fireborn and does break them, so that's certainly not bad. But now Eltharion, the Grim Warden, such a cool character. I really wish that Eltharion were a little bit better in multiplayer. In campaign, he's fine. In campaign, pretty much anything can be made fine, more or less. Like, you could get some of the most terrible lords in the games, and the itemization and, you know, tech trees and things like that, they can become decent, but yeah, Eltharion the Grim here. He's trying his best. Hunter of Champions actually locking him down a little bit. He's taking a bit of damage. Norsca really committing heavily here. Wulfric, though, being on foot, isn't going to be able to really keep up with the fleeing Eltharion. And it looks like the last Seafang in the back going down, and I have to say, though, Norsca has made some pretty substantial mistakes with their cav engagements and not really pressuring the High Elf backline as well as they could have with the resources they had. He's done a pretty good job this game using his Seafang abilities and has been able to really terrorize several points of the High Elf lines. But now Norsca's in a bit of a mass exodus, and the bounce power for the first time is kind of creeping back towards the middle ever since the beginning. Skinwolves mostly shattered off. It looks like 1 unit of Skinwolves there, 1 unit of Skinwolves here. It looks like 9 of those guys, and the other one here is very much in dire straits. Eltharion the Grim going fisticuffs with Wulfric, though, and that's pretty much the one thing that could lose Poison Ducky the game at this point, is if Wulfric were able to kill Eltharion for some reason. I think the High Elf Archers would have a lot of problems killing Silver Shielded Wulfric, especially with all these Skinwolves that could potentially be doing some flanking and other elements like that. So Archer's still shooting. Like I said, a little bit low in ammo. Norsca at this point looks like they're doing a bit of the dreaded tactical retreat. So they're going to be kind of skirmishing a little bit with their horsemen, getting those throwing attacks in where they can. But it looks like for the most part, they are going to be falling back, which obviously, if this was being played in a tournament, I have a feeling this was a ladder game. This would be breaking the rules technically, because Norsca, in a way, is just kind of like trying to pull the High Elves to them, and they're not making any conscious effort to attack as well. And that's really kind of how the rule works, right? Both players have to have some intent to attack. Like, for example, the Norscan player could retreat like all of his army and send in like some Marauders as sacrificial chaff just to kind of sustain his retreat. But in this case, he's more or less just kind of draw kiting here and pulling back. You can see just kind of refusing to take the engagements. And yeah, he's maybe trying to get better trained, but ultimately he's probably waiting for the Skinwolves to regenerate. But thankfully, for the sake of the High Elves here, they do have the mobility advantage. So Eltharion the Grim is much faster. Rangers are faster, I think, than baseline Norscan troops with 40 speed. And eventually Eltharion the Grim will get in here, and it looks like he is able to force one big old fight. Hunter of Champions going down, and a little bit of a scary situation as the Norscans do collapse with all their might, but the Rangers of the High Elves pushing in. Eltharion the Grim does get that Apotheosis off as well, so he is able to heal. And the Norscans do take some substantial casualties from the pursuing High Elves. Many of them are actually breaking, so we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding as there's some Benny Hilling going on here. But now Eltharion does get a nice charge with the Fang Sword as well. Fang Sword's kind of maybe an underrated item. I mean, the fact that it does give physical resist kind of makes it like Brom's Lucky Banner. Granted, it's just physical board save. It's not going to be saving you against like magic damage and things like that. But yeah, so Wulfric the Wanderer going to be getting hunted down here by Eltharion the Grim. And it looks like that's pretty much going to be it. It's just very much going to be a grindy fight as the High Elves do jump in there with their spears. And yeah, with Eltharion's presence as well, obviously the fact that he does cause terror, the Norskins are not going to be able to stand for very long. Well played. Ducky did a pretty good job defending his back line. Granted, Norsca, like I said, did have some substantial issues, perhaps microing too much. I think the army Dustin had might have been a little bit too much for him to handle there, because many of the units, like the Marauder Horsemen, were... And that's a hard army for anyone to handle. I mean, 4 horsemen, 2 hounds, and 4 skin wolves. That is a lot of micro and a lot of mobile utility that if you don't maximize, you're going to really struggle. But Poison Ducky played a great game, and man, I always love to see Eltharion the Grim in action. The High Elf Karl Franz, certainly, handling some of his business game. He got some good healing in there. He got some good damage in. Certainly really showed his role as a bit of a hybrid, caster combat character. And if you guys haven't seen Poison Ducky, he's also a content creator here in the Total War Warhammer community. So there will be a link in the comment section. Hopefully the comments or the description, somewhere down there, there's going to be a link to the Mighty Realm of the Duck. So make sure to go check him out if you guys haven't seen him. Always great to see content creators in the community. And you know what? We should probably have a duel. I think this would be a fun idea. So Poison Ducky and a Rubber Duck of War, if you guys are seeing this video. If you guys want to have a duel of the ducks, I think that'd be a really fun stream. Like doing like a best of 7 stream between you guys. To see who the boss duck is here in the community, I think would be really hilarious. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this High Elf vs. Norscan game, and we will be back with more content soon, my friends. Hope you guys are staying safe, and take care.